Hey guys, welcome back. It's episode 5. It's Rambir. Sorry I'll miss you guys. I was out on vacation for a couple weeks, but Martin, Hoyos, and Elias were holding it down. I'm proud of you guys, man, keeping this podcast going. Tonight we're going to be talking about a topic that just happened that everybody's pretty upset about. Tucci is joining us tonight, and we're going to be talking about the mass shootings that we had in Dayton, Ohio, unfortunately, and the one in El Paso, Texas. A little bit about myself, entrepreneur, restaurant business, a little bit of real estate, and just all about personal growth. Elias, if you want to introduce yourself, Tucci and Martin.
Elias, been living in the U.S. for 19 years from Argentina and self-employed.
Robert Tucci, been living in the U.S. 28 years now.
Born and raised.
Just graduated law school, took the bar last week, don't want to talk about it. And just waiting to start work here shortly. So.
And Martin Hoyos, I've been living in the U.S. for 15, 16 years, 18 years now. And yeah, we just a few guys getting together every night to talk about what we think is important, bring up those topics. Today we'll be talking about the shooting, and I hope you guys enjoy the show. Special shout out to Alpaca Restaurant for providing us with food this evening. Tarek, thank you for the music. Check him out at drumcandy.com, drum with 2 M's. And of course, our number one listener, Corey Harpin. Thank you for listening to us. He's listened to every single podcast, and we appreciate him and we love him for it. Thank you. All right, what's up, guys?
What's going on?
What's up?
Well, we got. I said we were gonna do introductions, but it feels weird otherwise. We're gonna do it later, but we have 4 guys here today. Yes. Biggest podcast yet. We're gonna talk about some controversial topics as we normally do. I'm excited. This is episode 5. But yeah, so as you guys know, there were some shootings that happened. What are some thoughts, guys? What do you think? This is fucking crazy. I think this fucking bullshit. That is what is it? Like 2 in one day? Like what the fuck is going on,
hours,
man?
Yeah, Dayton, Ohio, and El Paso, Texas.
Yep.
And I saw some stuff going on in New York. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Oh, they was.
What was that?
Well, the thing is, everybody's scared nowadays that they heard a motorcycle, heard a bike,
and everybody got scared.
Pop, 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 pop. It was a bike, and fucking all panic, all hell breaks loose in Times Square.
This is after the shootings.
I didn't see the news.
Yeah, like the next day or yesterday.
So there wasn't one in New York, but there was one in Chicago. 7 people killed at the same time.
So,
close to the Dayton, Ohio shooting. So, but I mean, it's what, 3 mass shootings in 2 days?
Yeah,
something like that. So,
what do you guys think it is? What do you think? You think it's the guns? You think it's the mental health? What the fuck is going on?
Mental health, man.
So you don't think the guns have
something that starts from early age, man? I think that starts from early age. I think what the problem is like their parents stop teaching their kids values. I think that's one of the main things. They stop, teaching their values to their kids, man. That's
right.
It.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I feel like there's frustration, that's insecurity on people that is happening right now. And
so I think, it's pretty interesting that the one in El Paso, the shooter there, kind of published a manifesto to this website called 8chan. And 8chan is kind of like it's like a nest for all of these white supremacists and people with very out there views that can't really go to any other website to get that coverage,
because he said this guy was, because he didn't like Mexicans, right? Specifically,
yeah.
He said he wanted to kill as many Mexicans as possible.
Immigrants, just
immigrants in general.
But you see,
but within that
hate
word immigrant, it's like Mexicans. It's like Latino,
well, there's this hate against somebody always. It's like, remember what happened in Orlando? Somebody wanted to shoot like in a gay club or
against gays.
Yeah.
Against, so there's always somebody that
it's going to be targeted.
Yeah, it's hate,
It's a frustration that is built up, and for some reason the only way that they feel that they can deal with it is to go out there and kill a bunch of people, which makes no fucking sense.
So they were saying mental health, and they were saying that Trump came out with talking about video games, and subconsciously it's in the video games. But these go back from before Trump, before. I mean, this has been going on for years.
Well, here's what happens, man. When something like this happens, and this is a fucked up. And I was talking about this with my friend earlier on the phone, and I actually I thought we were recording. I was gonna include it, but what's fucked up is the first thing that comes to mind when something like this happens is that there's people out there. They're thinking they don't care about the lives that the people who passed away. They don't care about the severity of the situation, but all they can think of is, oh fuck, now they're gonna take the guns away. Mm-hmm. That's what it becomes to. Oh fuck, now they're gonna talk about mental health. Mm-hmm. Like all they think is like, oh, this tragedy happened, but the tragedy is not important. The tragedy is not important anymore. It's like, how is this gonna affect my political, my tribe, my gang? And that's fucked up. And the fact that it gets divided and it gets polarized that way, I think is a huge problem that we have.
Well, it's also, you kind of have like this just, it happens every day. Like it's, you know, it's something that you just get used to.
In America.
Well, in America, right.
Right.
But what do you do with that? I mean, how do you react to every single tragedy when it's like almost every day that it's going on in a way that's like, I mean, you get fatigued. You know, and
sure.
You can't have the same level of compassion for each event.
Well, and nothing seems to change because again we're so polarized and put in this gang. So like, oh, we need to put the guns away, or we need to restrict guns, and then immediately somebody that's very pro guns is going to react negatively to that, and then this like blanket statement gets made like we need to get rid of assault weapons. For somebody that knows a lot about guns, they don't like that terminology because an assault weapon can be anything, right? But then the idea of restricting guns immediately gets translated as like they're going to take all the guns away,
right? Which is not going to happen. Right?
That's not what they even if the idea was to restrict it, it doesn't ever get to that conversation. They never get that far because before they get to that, somebody is outraged, and it's all about money, man. It's all about fucking money.
You know who does that, though?
The politicians.
It's the NRA.
Well, but what it goes back to is that the NRA contributes a lot of money, or they have influence on these politicians.
Yeah,
and that all politicians are the same way, right? Everybody to a certain level. So yeah, the NRA is responsible because they're the ones lobbying or whatever the fuck. I don't know how you say that, but they are influencing this.
I'd say they're rat fucking our democracy, but you know, say whatever you want.
But okay, but do you think taking the guns away will solve the problem?
Not necessarily, but that's what I mean. It's not that simple, right? But something needs to change. But to change about it, you need to talk for the change to happen. You need to have that conversation, right? Let's talk about how would restricting guns would affect this. Would it actually make a difference? It never gets to that.
I think that conversations happen. I don't think anything actually takes place.
I think that,
and also it's such a hot topic that is sensitive, near and dear to a lot of people, that you can't just make that decision and make that change.
Well, I think that it's
a right to bear arms.
Oh yeah, and I think that it never gets there because I think it's easier to control a society when it is a hot topic.
Right.
I think it's a hot topic because it's been fabricated to be that's the way I see it.
So interestingly, we do not have a right to bear arms in this country.
Mm-hmm.
This is, or at least historically, we never have. Right. This is a recent development from the Supreme Court. The Second Amendment historically has never been interpreted as an individual's right to bear arms. It's only been interpreted as a militia's right, or a state, police force, so forth. Basically, as a kind of a stopgap for the states to kind of equal the federal power. Right. Mm-hmm. It's a whole federalism idea. We don't want too strong of a federal government. But over the past 30, 40, 50 years, the NRA, I'll lump in Republicans into this as well because that's who the NRA has primarily targeted. They've really pushed this to the Supreme Court to have the Second Amendment declared as kind of like an individual's right to bear arms. But that historically, that just wasn't the case.
I think, and I don't know how it is in Europe and Central and South America, but I don't know if access to weapons is what it is as easy as it is in the States.
I don't know if they're in China. They're allowed to to have weapons?
I have no fuck. I know
Because
Australia.
I never heard anything about like a mass shooting in China. So is the problem the arms? If they're allowed to have arms, is the problem the arms? Because look, in China, they have 1,200,000,000 people there. So it's like 3 times or 4 times the USA, and they don't have. You don't hear this much
all over the
mass
world.
shooting. So you're like, why in this country there's so many in this country?
I don't think it's the guns itself, but I think that it's interesting that the I mean, obviously, not having access to the guns would help because they would not
But
be able
that's
to.
not the problem, though.
No, it's not.
I think
Because you see in China, it's like 3 times or 4 times the U.S. amount of people.
But I don't think
So
people
and they don't. You don't hear this there.
You can't talk over each other, guys. It's not gonna work.
I don't think I don't think people in China have as weapons like we do on a personal as individuals.
Well, you think? Well,
I think that's 100% assumption.
I know this.
Well-
I know that in Australia there was a mass shooting in Australia, and they very quickly acted on abolishing weapons. Like they just fucking got rid of them. Oh,
Yeah, in Christchurch.
and I don't know, but I think that if
Well, I
somebody,
guess we don't love the people that much here. We love the money more.
I think the money has a lot to do with it. I don't think eliminating guns would necessarily fix the problem. What's interesting to me is that the conversation never goes further than that. That the conversation always stop at that. Oh, you're gonna take the guns away? Fuck you. Or the guns are the problem. It's not that simple. There's a lot to it. Like, for example, let's say that we're gonna restrict guns, or we're gonna, maybe make it harder for some people. Most of the people that I know who carry guns are very knowledgeable, very respectful of the gun. I mean, 100% of the people that I know
because
are
you're gonna
that
take
way.
like a class, to
Right,
get
and
them, so-
I have no doubt in my mind from my personal experience that there's people that I know wouldn't do that. But there are people that are in balance that are taking these medications, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. That maybe there is something that we can do to make it harder for them to get a gun. But if there were no guns, well, we'd keep them from getting in a car and driving in the fucking Walmart with the cars. So what are we going to do? Restrict cars then? There's a deeper problem in here
I agree.
that has something to do with just not the gun. It's just something.
I agree. So one thing is the gun, right? Having access to the guns. I'm not saying take all the guns today from everybody or stop selling guns today. I think if you have access to knives, is very different than you have access to assault rifles or semi-automatic guns, weapons. But I agree with you that there's something deeper, and I think there's some type of mental health or people feeling isolated or feeling a certain kind of way. Does that come from video games? Does that come from confidence or low self-esteem or not feeling like part of a tribe or part of a village here in the States? I know here in the States you can live in an apartment or a house and be living here for 3, 4, 5 years, not know who your neighbors are, not be very social with people in your own neighborhood, in your community. In other parts of the world, it's just more people know people in the area. People, it's just almost like it's not so isolated. It's something
It's more like a community.
It's more like a community. It's more. As crazy as it sounds, it's like if you think about it here in the States, you have drywall, you have windows, everything's tight, locked, and sealed, right? Because of the weather. But also, like if you go to Central and South America, you know the windows are kind of like blinds, like they're kind of like shutters. You can still hear, you can still hear what's going on in and out of the house. You're having a conversation, you're fighting with your wife inside. People can hear outside. Right here, you can be making a bomb in your apartment and nobody would know.
Yeah.
Right, and nobody would know that you just look down and you walk to your car and you go back to work, and it's just that part of not having that social interaction, and maybe you don't have somebody to talk to, and I don't know if that's considered going back to that whole mental health that they're kind of blaming it on. I definitely agree there's something deeper than just access to guns.
Yeah, I think that in other countries there may not be as much of prosperity when it comes to wealth, but there's more of a sense of community, and
Right.
here it can be lost with that. I don't know.
Sure.
And I think it goes back to, again, money, man. Like, we have people that are working jobs that are making barely enough money to fucking live. And if you don't feel like you're working at McDonald's, you're getting paid fucking $7 an hour. You feel like all the Mexicans are here to fucking destroy your life.
Right.
You don't know, but who's causing this issue? What's causing this issue? I think is higher than that.
Sure, there's an influence.
And then when you have nothing to lose and you feel like that, then fuck it, I'm gonna go kill a bunch of people. That's what they do, I guess. That's what they think. I don't know.
Well, I think the political atmosphere should be discussed too, because the guy in El Paso published this manifesto full of ultra right wing white supremacist hate. You know,
Sure.
Where's he getting all of this?
Yeah.
You know, is it a surprise? I mean,
and something allows him to feel that this is okay, or maybe it's not okay, but fuck it, I got support from my brothers, right?
Well,
There's people backing me up that are encouraging, motivating me, and they're gonna be proud of what we're going for and people are upset about what's happening.
well, and did y'all read part of it where he's like, you know, these are my own views. I've had these since before Donald Trump was elected.
Oh, he said that?
He said it in the manifesto.
Interesting.
So why would he say something like that? You know, why is he trying to cover for Donald Trump?
Sure.
Well, I thought it was interesting that we haven't talked about video games being violent or since like fucking 1990, since Eminem used to be accused of causing violence in schools.
Right.
And all of a sudden, when the spotlight was on him, he's like trying to investigate on video games.
You know,
You gotta give it to the guy. He's an amazing manipulator, man.
Sure.
He knows how to deflect shit. Like, oh, it's coming to me. Talk about video games. Look at the video games instead.
And just so we're on the record with this, like, there's statistical studies that have demonstrated for a fact that video games are not correlated with mass shootings at all. Period. In fact, there's a reverse negative correlation for violence. Like, as soon as a new video game is released, violence drops. Right? And they don't know why.
Because people are busy playing video games.
Right.
All the violent assholes are at home.
Yeah.
So that's just something to kind of think about for a while, but it's an easy scapegoat, right?
Sure.
Because people don't
It's
feel very strongly about video games.
So the way that your head kind of works is like when you don't have nothing to do, and like we say, we don't interact with nobody. Your head starts going, and you start thinking, and you can think about a bunch of crap. I'm pretty sure, like, when nobody's looking at you, or no, you're not doing anything, you probably start looking pornography, or you start doing something like that. Why? Because you don't have nothing else to think about. And some people will just go a different route, you know. And what are you doing when you're like alone by yourself? And we're talking about 365 million people. One of them is gonna start thinking some stupid crap, you know. And if it get fitting by what you're getting fit by, and you start seeing this guy talking crap, and he's like, okay, he's right. What are these people doing here? You know, I go to, and then just one little word or somebody says something to you, and then if you're just sitting at your house by yourself, you start thinking. That's probably the only thing you think about, and then it makes you want to do something about it. Just because when you're alone, you just have a bunch of time to think about it. Like you said, when video games comes, the violence kind of drops because their minds are busy. So the best thing to do is like keep our minds busy, or keep the minds people busy, I guess, on something, you know.
Sure.
We need to
educating. So I think the problem is the parents. Their parent educating their kids, like, you know, showing them values, showing like what's right. But if their parents are fucked up, the kids is gonna be even more fucked up. And right now you're having girls having kids when they're 15, they're 16. The kid can go anywhere, you know? Like, they don't have like some kind of value in their life, and they can go anywhere. So right now that you could say a lot of bullying in the schools, and by somebody just talking crap to somebody else, that might create something to the kid. And it's like, when I grow up, I'm gonna kill all these motherfuckers. Yeah. You know? When I grow up, why? Because they, you know, so that can probably have to stop from the early age. Like, it got to be treated like, okay, when somebody's bullying somebody, the teachers got to stand up and protect the kids getting bullied. Don't make it seem like it's something little, because this can bring big to something big later on in life. You know, as soon this kid can turn 18, I think 18 you can buy a gun. Yeah. As soon you turn 18, you can just go do something crazy. You're still in high school when you're 18, and a lot of people talk shit in high school. Sure. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking? We live in a society that values winners and we're not values, but we're divided into winners or losers. That, you know, capitalism, whatever it is like you either win or you're losing, right? And that's what we thought since we're kids. You know, you're gonna either be successful or you don't want to be
last.
Yeah, either you're first or you're last, right? So if you think about what the fuck does it do to your head when you felt like you lost, right? There's no in between. Like, if you. That's what it would do it, right? If you think that way, if you truly eat that shit up and you think like, wow, I fucking lost. I didn't go to college, or I didn't do this. I'm a loser. I'm losing. I'm gonna go fucking kill all these Mexicans, these dirty brown Mexicans, uncircumcised motherfuckers.
Well,
Wow.
you're right.
Wow.
Well, but that's how they think, though, right? And like this website, 8chan, it provides, like you were saying,
What is
a
8chan?
community for all of these people to get together
and hate each other.
But there's also a real problem with restricting that type of free speech, even though it's fucked up speech. What is 8chan, by the way? I don't know what it is.
So 8chan is, for all those who are not familiar with, the inner workings of the dark web. Do what?
White supremacy chat lines.
Exactly, yeah.
Is it a dark web, or is it just a normal
It's
internet?
a white web.
So you have to access it through the dark web.
You can't just go it on the normal internet.
You can't. No, it's yeah.
So how do you get there?
Well,
You have to. You ever heard of dark web?
Yeah. So
That's a whole another podcast.
Okay, we'll have to do that.
yeah,
one.
that's like
We're gonna talk about
for
it.
the listeners.
I'm kidding.
That's someone for a higher pay grade.
Right.
No, so you can download. You can download something on your computer.
Can you just Google this and get into
So
the
right now there
chat
is a
room?
specific internet browser that you can use to get to areas in the dark web. I forget the name of it, but
Okay.
it's not Google Chrome or
So hold up.
Microsoft
Let me
Edge.
explain.
like
Super
on-
quick. Dark web.
Right.
You can get something on your computer that basically is untraceable. It's a software. So instead of using Internet Explorer, instead of using Internet Explorer, you're
Safari.
using this thing
It's different browser.
that actually. So you can buy weed, for example. You can buy,
right.
and it's actually used in certain cases for good. Like you can buy insulin in India for a fraction of the cost.
You can buy yourself a wife.
You can buy whatever. You can get a prostitute.
Organs.
It's completely
Organs.
untraceable
Yeah.
as it now.
Well, the police knows about this, right?
Yeah, but they can't trace it. There's no way to trace it. You can get into the dark web, purchase an organ, and get it delivered to your house. In a way, like it's completely untraceable.
But the thing is, like, if you do something there's no way you can.
So for white supremacists, they have to go to this dark web.
So you have to
go to this site.
Not necessarily, but like 8chan provides a platform for them to say whatever they want.
Express their feelings and thoughts.
And like this guy can post his manifesto and it won't be taken down type thing.
Okay.
And the way they're able to do that is there's certain sponsors or whatever they're called that provide the data processing centers for this website. And right now a lot of people are trying to target those sponsors or whatever to get them to withdraw their support. But if that happens, then 8chan is gone. But as of right now, it's still
How do you spell this 8chan?
It's just the number 8.
8?
Yeah. And
I thought you were saying HM.
Me too. So the number
H&M?
for the
Will you buy the
listeners,
clothes?
8.
8chan, CHAN.
If you're trying to find the HM,
8chan.
here's how you download the dark web. No.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Sure.
So the fact that this is available and somebody that's lonely in their house, it's a problem for you.
Right.
It could be a safe place for them to go to.
Right.
And it's a community. It's
Right.
it's a place for them to go that there's other people that feel just like them, and they're able to kind of cast these scapegoats, Mexicans, immigrants, whatever,
Right.
in the light that they want to, and fit that mold. That's how this guy wrote a manifesto.
Sure.
If we have to talk about how would you fix the mass shootings? Like, if it was your country and you have to deal with it, what would you do?
Well,
Question.
so that's a great question, but look at every other country in the world, right? Are they just like America, where they're having this problem?
So I saw this today because Bernie Sanders talked about it or Joe Rogan said it. And Joe Rogan, if he says it, it's true.
Sure.
But in the United States, there's about 200 or more. In other countries, there's about 3 to 4. So in this country, there'll be 200
per year.
Per year.
Okay.
200 mass shootings per year in the U.S. In other countries, like 3, 4, maybe less.
A year.
A year.
Right.
So it's significantly higher here.
So why? That's what everybody
wants.
wants to know. Why, right? So what would you do?
So, I mean, you look at countries like England, who in the late 80s or 90s banned guns except for recreational use and so forth, right? Because of a school shooting, right? That happened in England.
One time.
And then as soon as it happened, like, lawmakers got together and passed legislation. I know that's like crazy in America to think about, but anyway, so after that point, though, you look at the deaths from guns, and it just plummets.
Drops.
I mean, it's staggering.
I think it's a simple solution, right? If your kid is if your kid is cutting himself because he keeps playing with scissors, take the scissors away. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes or no? Would that solve the problem from cutting his fingers?
That's a great. But then how to use that analogy to what the gun owner would see is then how the fuck am I gonna cut anything ever again in my house? You took the scissors away, and I'm trying to play the devil's advocate here, right? Because the argument from the people who own guns is that there is a responsible way of owning a gun. There's a responsible way of doing this, and taking the guns away it's an oversimplified thing. I think that again I go back to the same thing, that there needs to be a conversation had, so that, because I think taking the guns away might fix one problem, but imagine all the turmoil that it would create from the people who are getting those guns away. Before they take them away, they're gonna fucking kill more people.
Okay,
I don't know.
let the people who have guns keep them, and stop selling guns. What happens? Or restrict it, or be very, very restrictive on the use and the sale of the guns.
I think
that's the key. The key is that there needs to be restrictions.
I'm not saying
around
don't take it, because I think that'll cause a freaking uproar if you take anything from anybody.
Exactly.
And the way our society is and our entitlement, right? You can't take this property from that person. Let everybody keep their guns. And step one is very, very restrict the sale of guns and just the use of guns. And I don't know, maybe it opens up different shooting ranges, and it might open up a whole nother scope of businesses, but limit the accessibility to these guns.
So here's what happens, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you know more about this than I do. What happens is the conversation would come up and say, what you just said, let's talk about guns, right? Let's talk about restricting. Let's talk about, but as soon as the words exit the mouth,
right,
and the conversation of guns come up, the NRA, all they can think of, or the people who sell guns, we're going to lose money,
revenue.
So they put this on TV, the people that love guns, and say they're trying to take all the guns away. So the conversation never goes any further. If the conversation, what you were saying, let's talk about it, let's figure it out, let's restrict it, let's make it harder for somebody that has mental health issues to get a gun. Anything like that starts happening, the NRA sees that, and they immediately push it through, and all the fucking gun freaks, or gun lovers, however you want to do it, they get very aggressive, they feel aggressive, so it becomes that, and the same happens on the other direction. That one little thing gets oversimplified, nothing moves forward because you can never talk about a topic in depth. Am I right? I mean, you know more about politics. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the NRA has controlled this narrative for the past 20, 30 years. And it's gotten to the point where everyone is talking about the same talking points from the NRA. Liberals, conservatives, whatever. We're all talking about, should we pass this really minor regulation that seems like everyone would be on board, but is somehow a controversy, like the red flag laws.
Well, I think we're having a lot of conversations, and I don't think action's taking place.
So the red flag laws, NRA, this is going to make the NRA happy. They should give guns to every single person. Every single person should have a gun. Somebody starts shooting a bunch of people, then somebody's going to shoot him before he kills 20.
Well, gun sales are going up right now because people are scared.
I thought about
exactly. I'm thinking about getting a gun just because protection.
A lot of people are. My wife is against guns, but guess what? Now she's like, hey, maybe we should carry something. Maybe we should.
Well, you should carry something as the man of the family, as the protect your family.
If I'm not with her and she's with my 2 kids, well, you know what, babe, you should feel very comfortable with a handgun.
And it's funny because even at 200 a year is extremely unlikely that it happened to you. But what you're saying is that it is a real fear.
So here's the really interesting thing about what you just said, Ranveer, is back in the Obama years, 2009 to 2016, whatever, there was such a huge spike in gun sales that it blew everyone away. I mean, but here's the reason why. Right-wing media, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, whatever, kept saying, guys, you better go out to these gun stores and buy your guns, buy your ammunition before they take them away from you, right? And then as soon as Donald Trump got elected, gun sales plummeted.
Because they know he's not going to do nothing.
Because they know he's not going to take them away, right? But The interesting thing is, like, what do you do with that dynamic, right? If it's politics that drives the gun sales, is that healthy for the country?
I think until it affects you individually, you could be on the NRA, but if your daughter gets shot or you lose your family, then now all of a sudden it affects you. But when it affects your bottom line or affects your revenue, then it affects you. So how does it affect each individual? Until it starts affecting you personally, whether it's your pocket or your heart or somebody you lost somebody, that's when I feel like.
So those mass shootings, somebody got to go shoot the owner of NRA or whoever.
No, we're not suggesting that.
So they do something about it. Well, if you look at it, like somebody might be so mad they just killed their son or their father.
Sure.
And somebody might be like, why you don't go kill that guy from NRA, you know? Like right now, you're not mad about anything because it happened to somebody else. But somebody can be so mad about it, they might want to go shoot the Congress right now.
What the crazy part is, subconsciously, it's in everybody's mind. If we go out tonight, we go somewhere, and all of a sudden here, boom, 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 boom. That's what happened in Times Square. Guess what? Everybody's freaking out. Especially because 24, 48 hours ago, there's 2-3 mass shootings. And they're thinking, I'm in New York, and this is Americans, this is tourists. What is this doing for America? Like, what it looks like. You come to New York, you come to Times Square, and now you're thinking you're going to lose your life today.
So Australia released, I guess, like a secretary, whatever the equivalent of the Secretary of State alert is, right? They basically said, hey, anyone traveling to the U.S., just be on alert because there's a lot of mass shootings
There were like 4
on,
countries, telling their people not to.
But they said that it's a white supremacist problem. The America has a white supremacy problem.
That's
so
the outside view on it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
100%.
That's so crazy. Because are all the shootings related to race? I haven't even thought about that. I don't know what the motivation is.
It always just think it's a white male wearing a trench coat. That's who your target is. But in D.C., they had somebody in Maryland, D.C. shooter, a couple years back, probably 10 years back now, and it was I think it was a black guy or he definitely wasn't a white guy. It was him and his son, and what he were doing is they were shooting in the back. I think they had a Crown Victoria, big trunk, and out of the keyhole they were shooting people out of that. They were
Yeah.
Oh, you talking about the sniper?
Everybody
I remember
was
that shit.
He was shooting at
they were
the
looking
trunk
for
of
a
his
white
car.
guy in a white cargo van, and it was like in a Crown Vic.
Yeah.
And it was like I don't know if it was a black guy or a Middle Eastern guy or something, but
I remember that.
But to go back to the race, is it typically a white man?
Is it always
9
race
out of 10
related?
times?
It's always some frustrating, insecure shit like, I can't get my way. This is not right. This is not fucking right. So I'm gonna go fucking make it right.
Well,
Which has nothing to do with the guns, man. Those motherfuckers would have done it with anything else. That's not the problem. I mean, it's interesting that people are not.
You're not going to kill 13
the problem
people.
is like, look,
You're
right
not
now.
going to kill 13 people with a knife.
Look, this
right?
just came to my mind. Right now, we think the mass shootings are the problem, right? It might be the government sending people to kill a bunch of people to do something, to scare people.
Shit.
What happened to 9/11? Do you think it was turned down by...
that's a whole nother podcast.
Do you think that was a terrorist attack or it was the own U.S. doing something about it so they can go to take another country?
What Elias is saying is, I don't think it's like, hey, the government found Tucci, hey, you're going to go kill these people. But is it subconsciously? Is it different ways that they're getting into you?
Could they push shit on your brain to make you?
I don't know if you guys remember. I don't know if you guys remember what happened in Vegas when somebody from the hotel shoot a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And I think he was set up.
How?
He was set up. They say he was set up. The way everything was when they found him in the hotel seems like it was set up for to put that guy in, to kill that guy. So when they walk in, they kill the guy. He got other guns. The wife didn't match in place. Like they put some pictures there. I don't know if that was like a real man thinking I'm going to kill all these people. I think that was like a setup for somebody. I don't know why, but they set him up.
Sure.
And I think this is a great segue onto our second podcast, which is the influence of social media and them listening to the conversations. And by being them is the fucking man,
Technology.
the government. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Please don't kill me.
they're hearing this, right? This is recorded.
Which we're going to be talking about next, which is how cell phones are listening to everything we say, and can they say things to us to control us, right?
Sure.
So that's our 30 minutes, guys.
Awesome.
We'll go drink some mate, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, go relax, man.